What's up, fellas? For today's movie, I will tell you a story of how a young girl became the protector of the most powerful nation in the world. So just relax out there, and allow me to tell you what happened in the movie. The film opens with Shuri working tirelessly in her lab, as her brother King T'Challa was dying from an unknown illness, which she was hoping to find a cure. And when she finally found a solution that may help her cure him, her mother tearfully informed Shuri that her brother had passed on. Later on, the Kingdom of Wakanda holds a funeral procession for their beloved king. Every citizen dressed in white, and a mural of King T'Challa had been painted. While Shuri and her mother Ramonda were standing beside the king's casket until a ship arrived to carry him up. Then Shuri took one last moment to weep over her brother's casket, while the citizens of the kingdom did the Wakandan salute. A year later, Queen Ramonda, who replaced her son in the throne, had arrived at the United Nations Assembly. Then the U.S. Secretary of State chastised Wakanda for not living up to their promises of getting involved in worldly affairs, which later then followed up by French representative, and told that they believed the Wakandans were keeping vibranium for building weapons of mass destructions. After that, Queen Ramonda hits back, and said that they are still mourning King T'Challa's loss, and that they knew what would happen if vibranium fell into the hands of outsiders. The night before the assembly, an outreach facility in Mali was infiltrated by mercenaries, who's trying to acquire vibranium. But they were met by Wakandan warriors led by General Okoye, and they all proceeded to swiftly incapacitate the infiltrators. Then, they brought the captured mercenaries before the UN Council, where General Okoye forced them to kneel. And before they leave, the Queen warned them that any repeated attempts such as this will be met with a fierce response. In the Atlantic Ocean, a CIA team led by Dr. Graham were operating with a vibranium detecting machine. Then two divers went underwater and found that the mining drill had been wrecked after it bumped to a very hard object which they believed to be a vibranium. But later on, they've lost contact with the divers who got attacked by an unseen attackers. Moments later, a tribe of blue-skinned people emerged and proceeded to attack the ship, and they slaughtered the people on board. Then Dr. Graham and her colleague attempted to flee through a helicopter, but the attackers' leader named Namor had grabbed the helicopter and hurls it into the ocean. In another instance, Queen Ramonda and Okoye have returned to Wakanda, where the queen found that her daughter Shuri's continuing her work on a new technology. While her mother suggested that she continued to work on her synthetic heart-shaped herb to bring back the Black Panther, she refused, as she believed the Black Panther to be a relic, and she only tried to recreate the herb to save her late brother's T'Challa. After that, the queen brought Shuri by the water to try and burn their ceremonial garments, to end the mourning period and begun to celebrate T'Challa's life, but Shuri expressed anger at the world for her brother's death. After a while, a man emerged from the sea and talked to the two of them. And when Queen Ramonda asked who is he answered that he's King Namor, the king of Talokans. Then he told to them that he wasn't happy with T'Challa's decision to expose Wakanda to the rest of the world, because this left his kingdom open and vulnerable to attackers, since Talokans also possessed vibranium. Then, King Namor ordered them to locate and bring to him the scientist that created the vibranium detecting machine, or he will attack Wakanda. He also told them not to let the others know about his existence. Because of that, the queen ordered General Okoye to find the scientist that King Namor mentioned. But Shuri tagged along despite her mother's objections. They then traveled to Virginia to find Everett Ross, where they asked him about the scientist who created the machine. To their surprise, Ross informed them that the scientist was a teenager at MIT, whose name was Riri Williams. So, Shuri goes to Riri's dorm and informed her that she needs to go with them, while also learning that her vibranium detecting machine was merely a class project that the CIA acquired. But Riri doesn't believe the urgency, until Okoye popped out of her bathroom and made Riri go with them. After that, Riri led Shuri and Okoye to her garage where she works on her projects. Soon, FBI agents arrived, forcing the ladies to spring into action and flee. Riri then gets her own iron armor suit that helped her fly, while Shuri and Okoye attempted to drive away. Then, a drone went after them, but Riri flied high enough to shot it before she runs out of oxygen. The drone then crashed over several cop cars, allowing Shuri and Okoye to keep going. Unfortunately, they were stopped when the Talokans suddenly showed up, and cornered them on a bridge and throw a water bomb, causing Shuri to lose consciousness. Riri also crashed upon the scene, and the Talokans attempted to capture her, but Okoye engaged in battle with them, seemingly killing 3 soldiers before facing the general named Atuma. He nearly killed her with her own spear until she shocked it out of his hands, and the other 3 Talokans rose unharmed. And when Okoye attempted to continue fighting, she was knocked off the bridge and fell into the water. While Shuri regained her consciousness and told to the Talokans that she's Princess Shuri, she also asked them to only bring them and not to kill Riri, so they've decided to took her and Riri back to Talokan. The next day, Ross went to the crime scene on the bridge, where he was met by his ex-wife, Contessa Valentina de Fontaine, as she was now a director of the CIA. Then Ross found Shuri's Kimoyo beads at the scene, and he secretly took it with him. Meanwhile, General Okoye returned to Wakanda, then she stood before the council and questioned by Queen Ramonda. And because of her failure in keeping Shuri safe, the Queen stripped Okoye of her rank as a general. Then the Queen went to Shuri's lab and asked her AI griot to track Shuri's beads. She then got in touch with Ross, who secretly speaks to her behind Valentina's back. After that, he tells her that the CIA believed that Wakanda was responsible for the attack on the mining ship, but she cannot told him much about Namor's involvement. Later on, Queen Ramonda went to Haiti to find Nakia, the wife of the late King T'Challa. She told that she's working at a school ever since her husband passed away. While the Queen and her were happy to see each other, Queen Ramonda notes that Nakia was absent from T'Challa's funeral. Then Nakia told her that she couldn't bear to think of it as being the end of her husband's life, even though Ramonda reminded her that for Wakandans, death was never the end. After that, she asked Nakia for help in rescuing Shuri. So, Nakia then went to speak to a local village woman in the Yucatan Peninsula, and told that she had seen Namor, and described his legend as Kukulkan, or the feathered serpent god. Meanwhile in Talokan, Shuri was given traditional garbs to wear before meeting with King Namor. And when they met again, the king begun to tell her his backstory. The king told that on 1571, his mother was part of a village that had been plagued by smallpox after the arrival of Spanish conquistadors. So, the people turned to the god Cha'ak for salvation. Then they found a blue material underwater, that they ingested to cure them of their ailments, but while it removed their sicknesses, it turned their skin blue and forced them underwater, since they could no longer breathe air. After that, Namor was born different from the others, with wings on his ankles, and the ability to breathe on land and underwater, and because of that, they've chose them to become the king. Unfortunately, his mother died heartbroken due to missing her life on the surface, but before she passed away, she made him promise to bury her in her homeland. And when they went to surface to bury her, he found the conquistadors raiding and enslaving the villagers. So, Namor and the Talokans attacked them and killed them all, while one priest referring to Namor as Un Niño Sin Amor, in English, a child without love, and that's where he got his name, because he has no love for the surface world. He then took Shuri further and showed her his kingdom, a prosperous and thriving nation not unlike Wakanda, and he asked Shuri to help them protect their kingdoms against the rest of the world. Meanwhile, Queen Ramonda met with King Namor after she speaks to Ross, who informed her that the CIA was seeking to take action against Wakanda for the mining ship attack. When she told Namor to accept responsibility for it, the king warned her about taking retaliatory action against the Wakandans if they threatened Talokan's exposure. In another instance, Nakia begins her mission to recover Shuri and Riri, and when she made her way underwater, she neutralized Namor's cousin named Namora, before she can attack Shuri. She then escaped with Shuri and Riri, but when Namor found what happened, he took it as an attack, so he leads his warriors to strike back. Meanwhile, the three have returned to Wakanda, and welcomed by the queen and the others happily. Then Nakia had reunited with her sister Okoye, but they soon saw the city were flooding, before they realized that they were under attack. The Talokans begun to attack the city, flooded the places and destroyed buildings. Then M'Baku, the leader of Jabari warriors, led his men in battle, while Shuri attempted to fight back with her tech. They've all tried to attack King Namor with all their fire powers, but it was no effects on him. M'Baku tried to attack him directly, but he got punched easily and knocked down in an instant. After that, King Namor went to the palace and flooded it heavily, causing Queen Ramonda and Riri to sink, although the queen managed to pull Riri to the surface, but they both became unconscious. And before the king of Talokans left, he ordered Shuri to join them in the attack against the surface world, or Wakanda will be completely destroyed. After that, they immediately tried to save the two, and they managed to revive Riri, but sadly Queen Ramonda had died from drowning. After that scene, a funeral was held for Queen Ramonda. Then M'Baku attempts to console Shuri and offered her a counsel for the loss of her mother. He also told that her late brother T'Challa have requested it on him, because he knew that someday Shuri might gonna need it. While the rest of Wakanda were evacuating from the capital to goes to Jabara's place, and the others have geared up for King Namor's return. Shuri finished her work on her suits for Okoye, which she called as the Midnight Angel. Then, Shuri found that the bracelet which Namor gave her were containing a material that the Talokans used to live underwater. Then she mixed it with T'Challa's DNA and successfully created a synthetic heart-shaped herb. With Nakia and Riri, Shuri ingested the herb and goes into the ancestral plane, hoping to see her mother Ramonda to give her guidance. But instead, she met her cousin Killmonger, the one that her brother T'Challa overthrown before. Because of that, she felt that her mother and brother abandoned her. However, she knew that it was now up to her to lead the kingdom in battle. And when she returned to the real world, she thought that she had failed to inherit the Black Panther, but she accidentally punched the suit due to her anger, and they've discovered that Shuri have succeeded in inheriting the strength and legacy of Black Panther. As the tribes were debating for their next move, a ship flies overhead, then Shuri descends as the Black Panther, and after testing her strength, M'Baku proudly declared that the Black Panther have returned. Shuri then gives everyone a speech about what they have to do next, and she also told them their plan for drawing Namor toward a dry area to weaken him, so he may be defeated. After that, M'Baku talked to her, and told that he was against it. He also warned Shuri to not let her anger consume her. But Shuri didn't listen to him, and ordered him to prepare for the attack. Later on, the Wakandans boarded a ship to prepare for battle, and they send out a signal from another vibranium detecting machine to lure the Talokans. Then, they engaged in their showdown with the Talokans who were attempting to board the ship, while the Wakandan and Jabari warriors fought back. Riri then emerged in her new Ironheart armor suit, while General Okoye and Annika flied in with their Midnight Angel suits. Then, King Namor gets high enough for Riri to hit him with a blast, and Shuri catched him in her ship to begin evaporating the water on his skin. But Riri was attacked by Namora, while Okoye had a rematch with Atuma. Riri then blasts Namora into the ocean, while Okoye knocked Atuma off the ship. Meanwhile, Namor attempted to break the ship with his spear, but Shuri fought him with her suit. Then Shuri tried to have the ship fly towards the desert, but Namor succeeded in breaking it down and destroying it, causing them to crash. Shuri and Namor then continued their fight with all they've got. But Namor still have enough strength to beat Shuri and impale her with his spear. Thinking on Killmonger's words, Shuri was able to free and heal herself before going back to fight Namor. Then, she used the exhaust from her ship to fire enough heat towards Namor to severely weaken him. She then grabbed his spear and prepared to deal the killing blow, until she saw a vision of Queen Ramonda speaking to her, and telling her to show him who she really was. So, Shuri ordered Namor to yield so that neither of their people has to suffer from their pursuits of revenge. She then asked Namor to protect her people, and she will also protect his people. Namor then agreed and yields. After that, King Namor called the Talokans to call off their fight. And Shuri yells, "Wakanda forever," as the Wakandans do the same. Back in Talokan, Namor speaks to Namora, and told her it was necessary to ally themselves with Wakanda, since they have no other allies to protect them, and this will work in their own favor. In another instance, Shuri then traveled to Haiti to meet with Nakia, and she said that there was one thing she needed to do. Then, she sits by a campfire and burned her ceremonial garbs, as she sits down to reminisce about T'Challa and finally grieve for his death. Before the movie ends, Nakia brought a boy named Toussaint, and said that he was T'Challa's son, and therefore Shuri's nephew. Then Nakia told her that her mother, the late Queen Ramonda had met him before her death. Toussaint then told Shuri that his Wakandan name was T'Challa. Shuri then sits and smiles, knowing her brother's legacy lives on. Thank you for watching, guys. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you in our next movie recap.